But it seems like if Ukraine was going to carry out this mission, you would destroy the bridge where it collapses. And I would imagine just doing one pillar may, you know, crack the foundation. But destroying multiple pillars along the way, I thought would be way more effective. Yaps. It's in the name. So we have yet another update on Russia versus Ukraine, because Russians, the people, are fleeing Crimea as Ukraine takes revenge, and apparently Ukraine bombed some type of bridge.
The Ukrainians are saying involved 1,100 pounds of TNT equivalent.
The attack comes hours after peace talks between the two countries fell apart. Meanwhile, Russia's launching new strikes of its own.
The bridge is a key supply route for Russian forces in Ukraine.
And claims from President Volodymyr Zelensky that Russia is now deliberately targeting Ukrainian civilians.
You have to think that's not just like for, obviously the military use that bridge probably strategically, but like everyday people use that. Someone can't go to their job now because that shit is blocked, and they're like, there's not a ferry that's gonna take me across. How the hell am I supposed to go? Am I supposed to swim? Am I supposed to swim to work?
After Operation Spiderweb, Russia is in panic. Putin knows more attacks are coming, and that's exactly why he's having Russian authorities check every single trucks. Well, that's causing miles-long traffic jam.
I don't think he's just focusing on the truck. There's a lot that's going on, and with Russia being kind of silent right now, and them throwing the threat of them having nuclear level, you know, damaging weapons, but not nuclear, and them threatening to use that to me terrifies me. It seems like they're positioning and they're getting ready.
And Russian people are complaining about it.
Anyway, Middle Village. There's a road blocked there for some reason. We were driving right through the fields right now, really bouncing around. We're back on the pavement. There's a huge traffic jam of vans. I don't know how many kilometers it's been going on. It's a mess.
Well, guess what? Putin's instincts were right. He just had the wrong idea. The next attack was not coming from trucks, but rather drones, more specifically water drones. This is what happened to the
Ukraine and their drones, man. Ukrainian and their drones, like, they have maxed out their drone level. Like, that if they're gonna play a game, they're just sending out drones. That's their weapon of choice.
Kerch Bridge connecting Russia to Russian-occupied Crimea. Here's the clip.
Which is kind of, wow. Holy crap.
Now, as you guys
that's not good. That's not good.
know, the Kerch Bridge is a symbol of Russian power in Crimea. First of all, of course, it connects mainland Russia to occupied Crimea, and on top of that, it's critical for the war. Russia uses it to support its military in southern Ukraine. It's like a lifeline for their army in that region. So, if Ukraine were to take out the bridge, or even if it damages it just
look like normal
enough so
cars.
it cannot be used, Putin
These people are going to go see family, going to try to go to work. Not no more. They're off.
would be in a big trouble. It would be a massive logistical problem. Without the bridge, Russia would struggle to get weapons and supplies to Crimea and southern Ukraine. Their military would just collapse in that region. Secondly, it would be a huge public embarrassment for the so-called second largest and strongest military in the world.
There's still ways
that
around
Ukraine
it.
has been able to hit them
But now
days
it's just
after
more of
day.
a pain
Remember,
in the ass.
this attack is just 2 days after the biggest attack
That's crazy.
carried out in Russia since World War II. And of course, more importantly, without the bridge, Crimea becomes open for Ukrainian attack, and that's something Putin cannot afford. If Putin loses Crimea, Russia loses this war. Before moving forward, if you guys can please hit that subscribe button down below to keep up with all the geopolitical news like this one. Let's begin. This is exactly why this attack was such a big deal, and it was something Putin was not expecting at all. This was just 2 days after Ukraine struck almost 25,000 kilometers inside Russia to their Belaya base, and now they're targeting the Crimea bridge. So here are a little bit more details from the attack.
Took months to prepare. The same agency as the SBU, operatives planted an explosive on support pillars, and at 4:44 a.m., the first device was detonated. 0 civilian casualties. The underwater supports were severely damaged, and at the seabed level, the blast equivalent to 11 kilotons of TNT. Wow. The bridge is structurally compromised and on the verge of collapse.
Just like the attack 2 days ago, this took months to prepare, and it was the same agency, SBU, the Ukrainian Security Services. Operatives planted explosives on the support pillar, and we'll talk about this in just a second because this is extremely important. The attack happened at 4:44 a.m. today, Ukrainian time.
Like, how did the operatives plant explosives on support pillars? Did they like take like little underwater like submarines and kind of float in, do the C4 underwater, and get out? Like, That I'm the most curious about.
when the first device detonated. Now, as I'm recording the video, we also have some unconfirmed reports from the Russian Telegram channels that there were multiple explosions that happened hours after the initial explosion. As of now, we haven't had a respectable organization confirm that, but as we get more information, we'll be sure to share it with you guys. But anyways, let's get back to the report. The underwater supports were damaged at the seabed level. The blast, equivalent of 1,100 kilograms of TNT. The bridge is structurally compromised and on the verge of collapse. Now here we have channel's favorite Chuck Farr sharing more details about exactly how this attack was carried out. As you guys can see from the graphics on your screen, the charge's placement indicates that Ukraine likely targeted or retargeted a previously damaged pile assembly. Each pile will have to be inspected and damaged ones will have to be replaced. A complex and expensive task. And more importantly, while this repair is going on, the traffic on the bridge is paused. No one can enter the bridge and no one can basically exit Crimea. That's a huge deal for Russia, who's been using the bridge to basically...
It seems like that wasn't like I'm not saying that I'm glad that it's not like, you know, destroyed, but it seems like if Ukraine was going to carry out this mission, you would destroy the bridge where it collapses. And I would imagine just doing one pillar may, you know, crack the foundation, but destroying multiple pillars along the way I thought would be way more effective.
supply their military,
at least
as
for
we have
what they're
covered.
trying to
Now,
do.
the drone they use, the underwater
this
drone,
is
we
war
actually have
after
some
all.
graphics from none other than Ukrainians. Now, this was released when the drone was first announced to the world. This is not the graphics from the attack,
Looks like a
but
giant
it's
dildo.
highly likely that the same drone was used.
The largest of
Now,
dildos.
you can see the drone from your screen. It costs
Look, it
roughly
even floats.
$450,000 per drone, and it is all remotely piloted
That's
underwater.
insane.
It's nicknamed Marishka, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but it's a prototype of multi-mission long-range uncrewed underwater vehicle, UUV, capable...
What's crazy is with how Ukraine is fighting this war, you don't need a lot of physical manpower because they're just sending out drones. Like, why fight the front lines with a men-on-men action when you can just do men-on-drone action? And the drones cost way less, don't bitch nearly as much, and... you know, can don't come back with PTSD.
Of strike missions against Russian warships and maritime infrastructure like the bridge. It has electro-optical targeting and infrared cameras. This provides it with thermal, low-light video, and navigation and satellite uplinks. It also uses electrical motors, which provides it with low noise propulsion. Now, I'm not a structural engineer, but it seems like Ukraine picked their target very carefully. It wasn't just some random pillar, which already would have been damaging enough, but they picked a very important pillar. From what I understand, it was a load-bearing pillar. That means Russia is too afraid to use the bridge right now, so all traffic has been paused. And this is how Russian propagandists are reacting to this attack, especially considering that this came just 2 days after one of the biggest attacks Russia has ever experienced. Now, I want you guys to hear the anger in the voice, so we're not going to
I don't
dub this
think
clip.
this is just going to be a jab and a cross.
Что теперь это стерпим, что ли, нахуй? Сколько можно терпеть, блядь?
Jesus.
У меня уже нервы, нахуй, на пределе, блядь. Въебите нахуй уже по Киеву, блядь. По центру, нахуй. Орешником, блядь. Заебали, нахуй, терпеть, блядь. Куколды ебучие, блядь.
Now, as if the attack
Jeez.
wasn't bad enough, you guys remember the clip I showed you at the start of the video? This clip? Well, guess what? That clip came from a Russian camera that was attached to the Crimea bridge. That means that Ukraine has been able to not only attack the bridge, they have also been able to hack or at least access all the infrastructure that Russia has put in to so-called protect that bridge. Apart from the very fact that a strike on the bridge support was missed, what also draws attention is the enemy's free access to webcams installed there. It's likely that the entire video surveillance system of the strategic facility was compromised, and it is unknown how long this had been going on, right?
They literally like probably just put a freeze frame of an image or just a replaying gift of just calm waters as people are going up, planting bombs, getting out, just like in a movie, like where somebody would just take like a stick and put a picture in front of the webcam just to block the view of the webcam and make it seem like there's nothing going on in the room. Like, that's crazy.
A military informant on a Russian Telegram channel. The bad news doesn't stop there for Russia. This isn't the only intelligence failure Russia had in last week. In fact, they were planning a major attack before the negotiations that started on Monday. And we'll get into the negotiations in just a second. But before, I quickly want to go over the attack that Russia was planning that somehow failed because of the Ukrainian attack, the Operation Spiderweb, that was carried out just 2 days ago. Russia planned Operation Juice Lighting, largest ever cruise missile attack on all of Ukraine for the night of June 1st, to force Ukraine's hand at Istanbul the very next day. Ukrainian drone destroyed many of these very bombers already fueled hours before they were to take off. I also want to point out, this information is not coming from a pro-Ukrainian source. It's coming from a pro-Russian source. So they were likely publishing this to brag about why Ukraine should surrender, because Ukraine cannot fight against Russia. Well, guess what? Ukraine surprised Russia so badly that this operation was never carried out. This information was published on Kremlin-funded and controlled outlet Tsargrad on May 31st, 1 day before Ukraine's Operation Spiderweb. The article was then deleted on June 1st when Russia lost one-third of its strategic bomber fleet, with Russia's operation for the night aborted. The largest air-launched missile attack on Ukraine took place on December 29, 2023. That day, Russian aircraft, including the very bombers Ukraine destroyed yesterday, launched at least 108 air-to-ground missiles of various types, murdering 58 and injuring over 160 civilians. If Russia planned its largest missile attack on Ukraine for the night before the Istanbul talks, Operation Spiderweb's destruction of bombers hours before takeoff prevented devastating mass casualties among civilians and incalculable destruction of infrastructure across Ukraine. Clearly, Spiderweb was a great operation, not just in terms of hurting the Russian military capabilities, but also in terms of protecting Ukrainian civilian lives. And now we have more details on how it was carried out. Now, some of you guys may already remember, but President Zelensky shared some details right after the operation was concluded. And he shared how almost everyone who took part in the operation from the Ukrainian side had been safely evacuated from Russia even before the operation started. And on top of that, the whole planning of the operation took place in a building that was right next to the FSB headquarters. So clearly a big slap in the face for Putin. Well, today we have more details about how exactly trucks carrying Ukrainian drones ended up right next to Russian air bases. Here it is. Russian media describes the logistics of the Ukrainian operation. Investigators questioned the truck drivers whose vehicles were used to launch drones. A 55-year-old named Alexander Z said the truck belonged to 37-year-old named Artyom. Some time ago, Artyom got an order from a businessman in Murmansk to deliver 4 frame houses from Shalom to Kola Peninsula.
This is the Trojan horse, the modern-day Trojan horse that Ukraine delivered to Russia.
An unidentified caller gave him instructions over the phone when to stop.
If you want to know more about that, watch my last video about this.
His final stop was Rosneft gas station near a military
I think it said Russia and Ukraine just escalated or got worse, something like that.
A similar account came from 61-year-old Andrei M., another driver working for Artyom. He was transporting frame houses to this region. But when he parked near a roadside cafe in Shaloy, the drones began launching straight from his truck. The other drivers reported the same pattern in Raznan and Ivanovo region.
Could you imagine?
46-year-old Sergey said that he was hauling a modular home from this region when, while driving into Razan, the roof of his truck tore open and drones flew out. The 4th truck used in yesterday's drone attack on Ivanovo airbase was loaded into the same region. According to the driver, it too was registered to Artyom. Bazaar reports that investigators have opened a terrorism case. They are now searching for Artyom, reportedly a native of Ukraine. And as we know from President Zelensky's statement just 2 days ago, he said everyone who was involved with the Ukrainian security services has been safely evacuated from Russia. So Russians have no one to actually blame who is inside Russia. So what are they doing? They're blaming the United States. Many Russian critics are saying that because of a treaty that Russia has signed with the US, treaty called New START, both countries, Russia and US, are required to park their bomber jets in the view of the satellite. So basically in public, not in protected structures. In reality, this is just yet another excuse Putin is trying to come up with to blame another country for his own failures. And I say this because the excuse the Russian propagandists are giving just doesn't make sense. Critics of Ukraine's attack on Russian bombers claim that Russia had to keep its bombers in open because of New START treaty requirements. This is not true, for 2 reasons. Number 1, New START does not require that. And number 2, Putin suspended Russian compliance with New START in 2023. So even when they come up with excuses, they don't care to check if that excuse lines up with reality. Same way how when Russians are trying to protect their bombers, they don't care to check if the bombers are actually secure. They are not much for details. And they're also not much for facing the reality, because all the while Russian military is getting hammered by Ukrainians, Russian negotiators in Istanbul are asking for a complete surrender from Ukrainian armed forces. Here are details of the peace memorandum, aka Russia's demands, that Russian negotiators presented to Ukraine during negotiations in Istanbul. The demands are full withdrawal of Ukrainian armed forces from the regions that Russia claims. Important to point out that a lot of these regions, Russia does not completely occupy. So they want Ukrainians to just give up territory that Russia has not won, all the while Russia is losing in the war. Second demand, international recognition of Crimea, Donbass as part of Russia. Fourth, Ukrainian neutrality. Fifth, elections to be held in Ukraine. Sixth, I think, a ban on redeployment of Ukrainian armed forces except for withdrawal operations. Sixth, a ban on hosting and deploying nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Seventh, a ban on supply of Western weapons and intelligence. Eighth, the lifting of all sanctions and a refusal to introduce new ones. And last one, a waiver of mutual claims related to damages caused during hostilities.
Meaning,
again, as you guys can tell from the demands,
let's just wipe our hands and just move on. Let's just like wipe our hands and do business as usual. Just don't try to arm yourself and stop doing business. At least arm business with the West.
This is not a peace memorandum by any means. Russia wants Ukraine to surrender, all the while Russia cannot beat Ukraine. This is where I want to remind you guys of a great speech that former President Ronald Reagan gave against Soviet Union.
Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second: surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? Well, Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically.
Wow.
He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better read than dead, or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs?
This is an American president right here, boys and girls. Hell yeah.
Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead, who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis, didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance.
Now, lastly, I want to show you guys
peace through strength. That's the answer to that.
Some satisfying reactions from Russian media after Ukraine wiped out Russian air bases and Russian bombers. Here it is.
These blasts that have taken place and these attacks on our core infrastructure and our nuclear infrastructure, this is systematic testing to see until which point we will put up with this. This is a preparation for nuclear war. This is the testing of other methods of knocking out our nuclear triad. Yours truly has been talking about this for a long time.
Выбивания нашей ядерной триады, о которых и ваш покорный слуга говорил очень давно.
It's been discussed in the circles of professionals for a long time. There is nothing new about this, but now it has started. Now we have to revise how well our nuclear triad is protected from being impacted by these means, and perhaps to make some adjustments to our legislative framework, because they are simply necessary.
От вот таких способов воздействия на нее и, наверное, внести еще некоторые корректировки, потому что они просто напрашиваются в нашу законодательную базу. Потому что нам теперь придется.
Realizing that the West has much more potential, now we will have to resort to preventive strikes. as opposed to retaliatory counterstrikes, because we may not be able to conduct a retaliatory counterstrike if these sorts of means are being used. It can be compensated only with them being preventatively knocked out, down to nothing.
You're also gonna have to get that mole out. Like if you guys had a plan of attack, and then the night of that attack, Ukraine came in and bombed the planes that you were gonna use for that attack. You gotta kind of have to figure out where your leak is for your information.
There is no other way, and their entire territory as a buffer zone, and controlling everything else throughout the entire territory of Western Europe. This is what I can say.
Больше ничем. И зоной безопасности на всю территорию, и контролем всего остального на всю территорию Западной Европы. Вот это то, что я могу сказать.
By the way, pardon, talking about what had happened, Sherry writes that videos that come out from there are being filmed by army conscripts. Can we execute this conscript by shooting? Bring out this dirtbag and execute him right in front of the formation as a traitor of the motherland who is simply working in the interest of the enemy. How did these trucks get through? Who has inspected them? This phrase alone. Oi, I didn't know what I was transporting in the truck. Where did you pick it up? Who loaded it? I don't know. This phrase, it was blindly transported. You didn't look inside?
I mean, in all fairness, I bet you a lot of truck drivers don't inspect all of their packages to a T. You know, they just kind of signed off, especially if it's somebody who they've done business with regularly. They're just going to sign off on the paper, load it up, and go.
When you got the papers, they didn't open it and show you? Don't play dumb. How did you pass the inspection points, the weigh-ins? How did it all happen? In the 4th year of the war, who will be held responsible for this?
Вот все как? Это на 4-й год войны. Это кто за это будет отвечать?
YouTube just dropped a mind-boggling announcement. It is paying creators $64 million per day.
Whoa, how do I get a slice of that bread?
Why? Well, because YouTube doesn't have enough creators right now. That's why
Well, looks like we're solving that problem.
you see videos on your homepage that have less than 1,000 views, like this one. Now, of course, that doesn't mean everyone should start a channel. But if you have ever wondered about starting a YouTube channel or a faceless channel, now
I have. Is now the time?
Now is the perfect time.
Why?
YouTube is paying creators millions every single day, and it's pushing newer and smaller channels now more than ever.
So you're telling me it's not too late?
But I'm sure you have many questions on how to start and grow a channel.
Yeah, how does one grow a channel? And how does one start a channel? And how does one break out of a plateau if one received 2 strikes not too long ago?
I get these questions in my email all the time from some of you guys. That's
a lot
why
of
we have
emails.
decided to put all of our YouTube advice into one training bootcamp for completely free. So if
Wow.
you're someone interested in starting your own YouTube channel, you can sign up for this bootcamp by clicking the
I might have to check that out. But in all seriousness, I am petrified of what Russia is going to do in retaliation to what Ukraine is doing right now. But let me know what you guys think. And as always, especially after this video, make somebody laugh, because the world is a scary, crazy place right now. So be the light in someone's life. Put a smile on their face. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.